Closing segment of Raw Monday Night was the best segment of the show. Beth Phoenix came to the ring to update us on the condition of her husband Edge and was immediately interrupted by Randall Keith Orton. Out he comes. He tried for a hug. He went for a handshake. She said, "You think I would take a hug or a handshake from you, what you did to my husband?" Called him a son of a bitch. And Orton finally took the mic and he explained his actions and he told a story about his father, Cowboy Bob Orton, taking him backstage to a WWF show in St. Louis in 1999. I'm a nerd, so of course I had to look it up to see if I can actually figure out which show was it. WWE came to St. Louis that year 4 times, one of which was actually the night after Owen Hart died, for that Owen Hart tribute episode of Monday Night Raw. It could not have been that night. Orton, if you remember in his promo here, Orton said, "I was backstage with my dad. I saw all the big stars like Austin and Triple H and Mick Foley and Davey Boy Smith." Well, the Bulldog returned to the company that year in September, which means it had to have been the October 24th show at the Kiel Center. This is assuming that the story is even true and he didn't just make this up for a promo. I'm assuming it's true. Edge was on that show that night, and so was Davey Boy. It had to be that one. And he said that the one guy who went up to his dad to tell him how much he respected him and how he was one of his, you're one of the best bad guys ever in the business, was Edge. And Edge looked at Randy and told him, "Hey, maybe one day we'll share the ring together." And he never forgot that. He used to be very insecure, and Edge gave him confidence, and they fought against each other. They teamed up together as partners. He made some bad life choices. He buried himself, and Edge was the one to pull him out of that hole. Edge saved his life. He says, "Edge is the reason that I can be a great father to my own kids today." So when he saw Edge come back at the Royal Rumble, he knew that he couldn't come back for just one match. He's a junkie. He feeds off the crowd. He knew that he would come back for more, and he did not want to see his friend wind up in a wheelchair and not be able to be a father to his little girls. So he did what he did to save Edge because he loves him, because he loves Beth, he loves their daughters. And then he said, "It wasn't my fault what happened. It's your fault." He put the blame on Beth, called her an enabler. You enabled your husband. And some people in the crowd at this point were cheering this promo, which I'm sure was not the intended effect. But there were a lot of people in the crowd cheering. Not everybody, but enough of them to notice. Orton said he realized that he, himself, loved Beth's kids more than she and Edge did, and with that, Beth slapped him across the face. Orton called her a bitch under his breath, and that's when Beth kicked him in the gut, and Orton dropped her with an RKO. Now note that they had her kick him first, before he delivered the RKO, as a way for him, I guess, to argue self-defense. Fans chanted one more time, because we can't have serious wrestling angles anymore, I guess. They did the same thing with Matt Hardy a few weeks ago. Remember that? When Orton was killing this guy, fans chanted one more time. This is why we can't have nice things. They cut to the crowd. They wouldn't show the ring. They wanted to really make this out to, add to the sense of realism here. They cut to the announcers. The announcers were acting all solemn, and of course, they then cut to 3 replays of this guy laying this woman out. So, I mean, how heinous could it really be? They showed fucking 3 replays to us. But a bunch of wrestlers ran down to help Beth, including her old tag team partner, Natty, who she is rumored to be tagging with possibly at WrestleMania against the Kabuki Warriors. This was a great angle. Predictable, sure. But I said last week, this ends one of 2 ways. Either Orton RKOs her, which he did, and gets massive heat, which he really didn't. He actually got cheered by a lot. He got some heat, but he got cheered by a lot more people than I thought. Or the babyfaces are not dumb for a change. Edge has to know that Orton might go after his wife, and so when he does, Edge pops out and attacks Orton. He's all healed up. They have to break it up. And they chose to go with the former option. And the fans instead chanted one more time, which does not speak very well to the fans in... where were they again? Brooklyn. Of course they were in Brooklyn. Why am I not surprised? I've only lived here my entire life. So this was a great segment. Now the other way that they could have gone with Orton's explanation. Instead of overcomplicating it with the whole I crippled him before he could cripple himself, which really doesn't make a whole lot of sense. It is a bit of a reach for an explanation, but at least they gave us one. But I think there's an alternative way they could have gone with this, and it's very simple. Randy Orton was really happy to see Edge back in the Royal Rumble match, his old partner, his old friend, until Edge eliminated him. No mention of the fact that Edge eliminated Randy Orton from the Royal Rumble. You want to make the Rumble feel special? He was really happy to see Edge back until Edge dumped him out of the ring. Edge took away his chance to go to the main event of WrestleMania. In one night, Edge not only stole his chance to win the championship, but he stole the spotlight from him after his little 9-year vacation. No phone calls, no text messages, no visits. You never even bothered to introduce me to your 2 little girls. I've never even met your kids before. I thought we were brothers. 9 years go by, I don't hear from you. And then you show up like you never left the place and you eliminate me from the Royal Rumble? I had to put you down, Edge. I had to dim your hopes of ever coming back again because you abandoned me. You abandoned this company, and I'll be damned if I'm going to let you come in and take my spot. And you could still run the angle here where he gives Beth an RKO. That story could have worked too. They're not ones for the element of surprise either, because WWE has already announced that Edge is going to be returning on Raw tomorrow night to address what Randy Orton did to him and his wife. After one of the most lopsided championship matches that we have ever seen, losing to Brock Lesnar in Saudi Arabia without getting a lick of offense in, the bad luck continued this week for poor Ricochet. Poor Rick O'Shea, losing to Riddick Moss in a 24/7 title match. Riddick Moss, or as the casuals who watch this show would call him, who? Ricochet lost to who on Monday night. Now, for his sake, I really want to believe that this is building to something like the Messiah, taking him under his wing and bringing him into their little faction. But I have 2 words for you. For everybody holding out hope that this is leading to something great for Ricochet. First of all, there's actually 2 things to point out. Number 1, this was apparently not the original plan for the show. This was a Vince McMahon change. Ricochet was not even supposed to be involved in this. I think it was going to be Riddick Moss and R-Truth. And it was Vince McMahon who put Ricochet in there. So unless Vince McMahon at the very last second came up with some great idea for Ricochet, that does not sound very promising to me. That does not sound like there's a long-term plan involved here. So that's number 1. But I have 2 words for you. Cedric Alexander. Cedric Alexander was getting pushed for a while until Vince McMahon lost interest in him. Like Ricochet, right? He's hugely talented in the ring, not very good on promos. Ricochet is actually worse. If we're being honest here, he is not very good at all when you put a microphone in his hand. So it is entirely possible that he has fallen out of favor with the boss man. Now, if they start to acknowledge it on television each week, boy's on this losing streak, Ricochet's really down on his luck, that would seem to indicate that there's an angle here that might be leading somewhere. But in the meantime, this guy's stock has taken a gigantic hit that he may never be able to recover from. You are only as valuable as you are made out to be in the eyes of the fans. And Ricochet has never meant, and this is a fact, this is not my opinion, this is not subjective, what I'm about to say. Ricochet has never meant less than he does right now. Ever. At any point in his career since he became a star. On the independent scene, Lucha Underground, WWE, NXT, he has never meant less than he does at this exact moment.